They ripped her shirt in front of everyone, and nobody moved. Not the students watching with their phones out. Not the teachers who turned the other way. Not even the school counselor who'd promised to keep her safe just 3 days before. In that hallway, in that moment, Amira Walker wasn't a person anymore. She was entertainment. 16 years old, a scholarship student from New Jersey. Straight A's, 0 disciplinary record. The quiet girl who never spoke unless she was called on. They thought she'd keep quiet this time too. But instead, with her heart pounding and a crowd laughing, she did something no one expected. She reached into her torn backpack, unlocked her phone with shaking fingers, and hit record. Before anyone realized what was happening, one of the boys was airborne. His back slammed into the locker so hard the hallway echoed. Phones dropped. Laughter stopped. The crowd didn't cheer. They froze. Because what happened next didn't look like self-defense, it looked like precision. And as faculty finally rushed in, and someone yelled for security, she didn't run. She stood still, chest rising, hands open. No tears, no panic. Just silence. The kind that unsettles even the ones who think they're untouchable. And somewhere in that frozen crowd, someone whispered it under their breath. Did she just throw him? Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. If you fight for justice and you think the Bullies has no rights to humiliate the girl, hit the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. But if you think they have every rights to humiliate her without cause, comment your thoughts below. And don't forget to share the video to those who also fights for justice. What most people didn't know that day is that this wasn't the first time she'd been cornered. This wasn't even the first time someone had tried to humiliate her. But it would be the last time anyone underestimated her. Because by the time the footage went viral, by the time the media caught wind, by the time the school realized it could no longer control the narrative, Amira had already documented everything. Names, dates, footage, and the chilling truth about what really happens in the walls of elite schools when those in power think no one will speak. But she wasn't just ready to speak. She had evidence. And the more people watched, the more they asked the question the school tried so hard to bury: how many others had they silenced before her? I remember the first day I stepped onto that campus. Bridgestone Academy looked like something out of a brochure. Red brick buildings framed by ivy, a courtyard with this fountain that never stopped running, like the money behind it just kept flowing. Students in pressed uniforms, teachers who smiled with their mouths but not their eyes, and parents who didn't show up unless it was for a photo op. They called it a legacy school. What they meant was, your last name meant more than your GPA. And if you were one of them, the rules bent before you even walked through the door. I wasn't one of them. I was Amira Johnson, 16, transfer student, full academic scholarship from New Jersey. My mom worked double shifts to keep the lights on, and the only reason I even got in was because a retired alum sponsored my application after reading my essay. I was the opportunity case, the box they checked to say, look, we believe in diversity. But when I arrived, it was like walking into a world that already decided who I was before I even opened my mouth. They didn't see me. Not really. They saw a girl who didn't have the latest phone, who wore second-hand shoes, who sat alone in the lunchroom, earbuds in, eyes down. They thought quiet meant weak. That if I didn't fight back, I must not know how. That's where boys like Tyler come in. Tyler Hastings, senior, quarterback. His dad was on the board. His mom donated the new science lab. He had that kind of confidence that doesn't come from talent, just from knowing nothing bad sticks to you. Then there was Cameron Blake, class president, captain of debate, the kind of boy who could cheat on a final and still get a recommendation letter. And Zach Monroe, always the one laughing the loudest in the back, always filming something he shouldn't. They weren't just students. They were a system, a machine, and Bridgestone kept it well-oiled. It started small. A shove in the hallway, my locker jammed with water bottles, someone snatching my notebook and tossing it into the trash during lunch, whispers behind my back, pictures taken when I wasn't looking. You learn real fast that when you're the outsider, even the walls got ears. But what broke me the first time wasn't the pranks. It was how everyone else just watched. Teachers saw, staff saw, students saw, and no one said a word. Not when they cut my backpack straps during gym. Not when I found those photos of me edited passed around on Snapchat. Not when I started skipping class just to sit in the library because I couldn't take another day in that cafeteria. The only one who ever asked if I was okay was Ms. Reyes, the janitor. She handed me tissues once without saying a word. I cried in the stall that day until I couldn't feel my face. But even then, I didn't tell my mom. I couldn't. She already gave up so much just to get me here. She believed this school was my future. And for a while, I forced myself to believe it too. Until the locker incident. It was early October, homecoming week. Everyone buzzing about the pep rally, the game, the dance. I was walking down the East Wing hallway when Tyler and his boys showed up out of nowhere. They boxed me in, like they'd done before, only this time they weren't laughing. Tyler leaned in and said something low. I'll never forget the way it made my stomach turn. Then I felt it, fingers yanking my shirt. The fabric tore. I froze. And then the hallway exploded in noise. Phones out, cameras rolling, laughter. I stood there, exposed, humiliated, every part of me shaking. And in that moment, something broke. But not the way they expected. I didn't cry. I reached into my pocket. I hit record. Because what they didn't know was that I had already been collecting weeks of footage, names, times, faces. I'd been watching them the way they watched me. I'd studied Judo since I was 8. My uncle taught me, said it wasn't just about fighting, it was about balance, control. And in that split second, I remembered every lesson. Tyler didn't see it coming. I used his weight against him. He hit the lockers hard. Zach dropped his phone. Cameron stepped back like he'd seen a ghost. But that wasn't the real story. The real story was what came next. The footage I'd saved, uploaded, backed up, time-stamped, the voice memos, the messages, the list of girls who left Bridgestone quietly, without a word, after being called liars, troublemakers, unstable. Because I wasn't the first. And I knew I wouldn't be the last. So I made a decision. If the school wasn't going to protect me, I would protect myself. And not just me. I'd make sure no other girl had to walk those halls afraid. But here's what I didn't see coming. The pushback didn't come from the boys. It came from the school. The dean called my mother the next morning, said I'd escalated a nonviolent confrontation, told her I violated school conduct. They suspended me, said I attacked a student. But by then, the footage had already spread. And what was once a hallway scuffle turned into something much bigger. So here's what I want to ask you. Why was I the one punished for defending myself? Why were they protected? What exactly did that hidden camera capture? What secrets were they afraid would come out? And how deep does a cover-up go when a school built on privilege decides its reputation matters more than its students? Keep watching. The truth is bigger than anyone imagined. I ain't never forget the way grief feels when it's still fresh, when it hasn't settled into memory yet, when it still sneaks up on you in the silence. That's what I carried with me to Bridgestone. Grief. Real grief. My mama passed 6 months before I got that acceptance letter. Breast cancer. Came fast, came quiet, and didn't leave no time for goodbyes. One minute we were arguing about me staying up late. Next minute I was signing hospital papers with her name spelled wrong. I had to grow up overnight. Moved in with my Aunt Loretta out in Newark. Tiny apartment, bare walls. She worked nights, so most evenings I was alone. Just me, a box of my mama's things, and my judo mat rolled out on the floor. Judo was one of the only things I kept from before. Started when I was 6. My coach, Mr. Givens, was more like a second father. He didn't just teach me how to move, and he taught me how to be still, how to breathe when my whole world felt like it was falling apart. He always used to say, "You don't start fights, you end them, with grace." Those words stayed with me, even when I wanted to forget everything else. I had no business being at Bridgestone, I knew that. That school wasn't built for girls like me. It was built for legacies, for the Camerons, Tylers, and Zachs of the world. Boys who wore custom blazers before they hit puberty. Boys who never had to earn a single thing in their lives but still acted like the world owed them more. Tyler Hastings was third-generation Bridgestone. His grandfather's name was on the alumni wall. His daddy sat in the headmaster's office once a quarter. Tyler had been hazing kids since sophomore year, and the school called it boys being boys. One kid even left after being duct taped to a goalpost during winter break. They made it seem like a prank. It wasn't. Cameron Blake, now he was different. Cold. Calculated. He never touched you directly, but his fingerprints were on everything. Rumors had it he'd hacked the grading system once. Got away with it. He always spoke like he was reading from a script, like he was born rehearsed. His daddy, big name in real estate, helped fund the new media center, so Cameron basically walked on water in those halls. Zach Monroe, he was the charm. Always laughing, always filming, always the one to say, "It's just a joke." But I saw behind his smile. I saw the way he watched people, like he was collecting something. I found out later he'd been in trouble before. Some girl at his last school filed a complaint. The record vanished, just like she did. That's the environment I stepped into. A polished machine, a place where secrets didn't get solved. They got buried. And when I walked through those double doors for the first time, I felt it deep in my gut. Like something was waiting for me. Like I had to brace myself. They didn't call it bullying, they called it initiation. They said it was tradition, said we all went through it. But for me, it was psychological warfare. I kept my head down. I wore the same sweater 3 days a week. I ate lunch in the library because I didn't want to be stared at like I was a museum exhibit. And when they tripped me in the stairwell, I laughed it off because that's what they expected. That I'd play along, take it, be the strong one. But strength ain't about silence. That's what they got wrong. It wasn't just about them putting gum in my locker or mocking the way I spoke. It was how they chipped away at your worth piece by piece. Like the day I turned in a paper and the teacher asked if I really wrote it myself. Or the time I answered a question right in science class, and Zach muttered, surprising under his breath. Little cuts. Over and over. And I was bleeding out slowly. One night I came home to a voicemail. It was Coach Givens. I hadn't spoken to him in months. But his voice? Still the same. Still warm. He said, "Amira, I don't know what you're facing right now, but whatever it is, you remember this. You don't need to prove yourself to anyone. You already are who you were meant to be." I sat on the kitchen floor, phone in my hand, tears running down my face, and I made a promise to myself that night. If they wanted to test me, I'd show them who they were messing with. But I wouldn't do it their way. I wouldn't scream or fight or beg. I'd document, quietly, carefully. I started saving screenshots, recording videos, logging every incident. I set up a small hidden camera. Nothing fancy, just enough to catch what really went down when no one was looking. I knew what I was doing was risky, but I also knew I had nothing left to lose. Because that school? It wasn't just about getting a good education anymore. It became a battlefield. One where I wasn't just fighting to graduate, I was fighting to be seen. Every time I looked in the mirror, I thought about my mama. What she gave up for me. And I kept hearing her voice in my head. You're worth more than they'll ever admit. So I kept going. Kept collecting. And then the locker hallway happened. I wasn't expecting it that day, but I wasn't surprised either. The hallway was quiet. Too quiet. They timed it just right. No teachers, no cameras, except mine. I could smell Tyler's cologne before I saw him. I remember the flicker of fluorescent lights above me, the way Zach grinned, phone in hand, Cameron's arms folded, like a judge waiting to pass sentence. And when that fabric ripped, something inside me snapped. But it wasn't rage. It wasn't fear. It was clarity. I did what I had trained my whole life to do. I responded. And in that moment, they saw a side of me they never expected. But the most dangerous thing I did that day wasn't the throw. It was hitting record. Because that footage, that was my truth. And once it was out, they couldn't hide behind money or legacy anymore. But what followed, that's the part nobody was ready for. The school didn't want justice. They wanted silence. They wanted me to disappear like the others. But I wasn't going anywhere. Before we go deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Because this story, it's only just beginning. By the time it all came to a head, I'd already been carrying the weight for too long. You know that kind of pressure where you wake up and your stomach's tight before your feet even hit the floor? That's how I felt walking into that school every morning, like I was bracing for a hit I couldn't see coming. It wasn't always loud. Most times it was quiet, calculated. They didn't need to put hands on me every day, their words were sharp enough. At first it was just whispers in the hallway. My name scribbled wrong on attendance sheets. I'd find my locker jammed, papers soaked with water or something worse. I lost a whole notebook, every assignment, every page I'd written, gone. Then they started planting rumors. They said I had a criminal record, said I came from a bad home, said I got in on a special program, like my scholarship was charity instead of something I earned. It chipped away at me. Even when I tried not to let it show, it did. I could feel it in the way I stopped raising my hand in class, the way I started walking with my head down again. Even my breathing felt heavier, like I was inhaling shame that didn't belong to me. I tried telling someone, a guidance counselor first. She gave me that look, the kind that says she's already decided what she believes before you even finish talking. Said I should try fitting in more. Said I should give it time. Time. What they didn't realize was every minute I spent in that building, I was unraveling. The Friday before it happened, someone left a note in my locker. No name. Just one sentence, written in red pen. You'll leave before winter break, one way or another. I didn't show it to nobody. I didn't cry. I went home, and I sat in front of the mirror, holding that note in one hand, my phone in the other. I kept thinking about all the girls before me who probably got pushed out the same way. Quiet, forgotten. And I promised myself again, I won't be one of them. That next Monday, I walked into school like nothing had happened. Hoodie zipped, hair braided back tight, second phone charged and hidden in the side pocket of my backpack. I had a gut feeling it was coming. It was early, just past 7:20. Halls were mostly empty. The light above the main stairwell flickered. It always did. I passed the trophy case, same one they polished every month, and turned the corner toward the freshman wing. That's when I felt it. That prickling sensation down my spine. Like static. Like being watched. I slowed my steps. I heard footsteps behind me. Slow at first, then faster. I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. Tyler's voice always carried a certain sound. Cocky, careless, hungry for attention. I felt his hand before I saw it. Rough, entitled, like he owned the right to grab me. He pulled me back by the shoulder of my hoodie so hard I stumbled. My back hit the lockers, and then I heard it. Rip, fabric tearing, my shirt. My body froze. For a split second I felt like I was outside myself, looking down at this scared girl whose breath caught in her throat, who had nowhere to run. I saw Cameron raise his phone. Zach was already laughing. One or two students stopped at the other end of the hallway. Not close enough to help, just close enough to witness, and maybe enjoy. In that moment, I could have folded. I wanted to. But something inside me, something deep, said, no. I remembered every throw I'd practiced, every fall I'd taken and gotten up from. I remembered Coach Givens telling me, control your center, and they can't take your power. So I centered myself, and I moved. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't cinematic. It was clean, efficient. I grabbed Tyler's wrist, pivoted, used his own weight against him, and slammed him face first into the lockers with a thud that echoed like a gunshot. He didn't get up. The hallway went still. Cameron lowered his phone. Zach's grin vanished. The two bystanders, gone. My heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear my own thoughts. My hands were shaking. I could taste metal in my mouth. Adrenaline, fear, everything at once. And then slowly, I reached into my backpack, pulled out the second phone, opened the video folder, pressed send. I sent everything I had, weeks of footage, screenshots, logs, to 4 places: my aunt, my old coach, the school board, and a reporter I found online who'd written about Bridgestone before. That moment, it wasn't victory. It wasn't revenge. It was release. I knew there'd be consequences. I didn't know how big they'd get. But I was done playing their game. I wasn't just defending myself, I was exposing them. And that scared them more than anything I could have ever done with my hands. Because the truth don't fade. And once it's out in the open, it can't be ignored. But what came next? That's the part nobody saw coming. They didn't try to protect me. They tried to erase me. And that's when I realized the real fight wasn't with the boys. It was with the system that raised them. The same one that told them they'd always be believed and told me I never would. So I had to decide, would I run or would I stay and finish what I started? I knew the moment I hit send, I couldn't take it back. And I didn't want to. I didn't go to first period that day. I sat outside on the back steps behind the gym, with my knees pulled to my chest and that cold autumn air slicing across my face like it had something to prove. I waited for the world to change, for something, anything, to shift. And by third period, it did. Somebody posted the video on TikTok, then Instagram, then Twitter. Not just the slam, but the whole thing. Everything leading up to it. The tearing, the laughter, the look on my face right before I moved. That sound his body made when it hit the metal. Raw, unedited, loud as truth. It took less than 2 hours before the whole school was buzzing. Some kids I ain't never even spoken to were whispering my name in the hallway like it was folklore, a legend in real time. Others looked at me like I broke some sacred rule, like I'd done something unforgivable just by standing up for myself. By lunch, I wasn't just a name anymore. I was the girl from the video. But the part that hit hardest was when other students, ones I ain't never met, started coming forward. Quiet, but strong. Notes slipped under the library door. Emails sent from burner accounts. Stories of things that happened in locker rooms, stairwells, dark parking lots after late practice. Most of them never reported. Most of them didn't think anybody would believe them. That school had been silent for too long. I guess I cracked the seal. And just like that, it was out of their control. The administration moved fast, but not for me. For them. They tried pulling the footage offline, calling it unauthorized. Sent out this cold mass email talking about confidentiality violations and disciplinary proceedings. They didn't mention my name, but I could feel it. The way they wrote around me, like I was a problem, not a person. Like I'd done something to the school by showing what happened inside it. By that evening, Tyler's parents had lawyered up. Word was he needed 6 stitches and a CT scan. They said I'd blindsided him. Said it was excessive force, like I was supposed to just let it happen. 2 days later, I got a letter at home, hand-delivered by a campus officer. One sentence in bold: "You are suspended, effective immediately, pending further review." They couldn't say they were expelling me, not with the media sniffing around, but that letter said enough. Meanwhile, they kept him in school, like nothing ever happened. He walked those halls with a bandage over his eyebrow and a smirk under it. I remember sitting at the kitchen table, letter in hand, and my aunt pacing. She wanted to burn the whole place down, said we should get a lawyer, said this wasn't justice. But I told her, we don't fight their way. We show truth. That's when the press started calling. Local first, then national. But I didn't talk to no one. I didn't want my story told in someone else's words. I wanted it seen. One girl, I still don't know her name, made an anonymous Instagram page just for survivor stories at Bridgestone. Within 3 days, it had over 20,000 followers. Some of the stories made me sick, others made me cry, but all of them made it clear this wasn't about me anymore. It never was. This was a pattern, a machine, a place where power protected itself. But it wasn't just us speaking up. Some alumni, folks who graduated decades ago, started stepping in. Black alumni especially. They remembered what it felt like to be tolerated, but not accepted. Smart enough for the scholarships, but never enough for the inner circles. They wrote letters, held town halls, demanded the board look into the administration's handling of the incident. And still, the school stayed silent. Then the footage disappeared. The original TikTok link, dead. Instagram post, gone. My second phone, hacked. That's when I knew they were trying to erase it, piece by piece, bite by bite. And to make it worse, someone at the school started a rumor that I provoked it, said I was looking for attention, even said I edited the footage. I shouldn't have been surprised. That's what they always do. Flip the frame until the victim becomes the villain. But then something unexpected happened. Another account popped up. One none of us recognized at first. Username was vague, looked like a spam page. But what it posted? Worse footage. Same hallway, different angle, longer clip. From a phone we didn't know existed. And in that video, you see everything. You hear Zach egging them on. You hear Cameron say, "Hurry before someone comes." You see the exact moment Tyler reaches for me, and the look in his eyes. Ain't no way to twist it after that. Ain't no, he said, she said, when the whole world sees it. And then people started naming names. Students, teachers, even a janitor who said he reported stuff before and got reassigned instead. That's when it shifted. I wasn't just the girl who fought back. I was the face of a movement, and that scared them more than the truth, because now they couldn't control it, couldn't bury it, couldn't pretend it was isolated. It wasn't, and it never had been. But just when it felt like we were gaining ground, like maybe something real was about to change, a new twist came out. One that made everything feel even more dangerous than before. Because the person running that anonymous account wasn't just some random ally. She was closer to the boys than anyone imagined, and what she knew would turn everything on its head. I remember the day everything shifted, not because of what was said, but who said it. It was late, nearly midnight, and my aunt had fallen asleep on the couch again, TV still flickering in the background. My phone buzzed once. No name, just a message. "You don't know me, but I know what happened, and it wasn't just you." At first, I thought it was another troll. I'd been getting plenty of those. Fake accounts, random threats, people calling me a liar. But something about this one felt different. No clout chasing, no hashtags. Just a simple truth I wasn't ready to hear. Turns out she used to teach at Bridgestone. Quiet woman, kept to herself. I never had her in class, but I'd seen her in the halls, always carrying a stack of books like armor. The kind of teacher nobody really noticed until she wasn't there anymore. Rumor was she left to pursue a better offer. But that wasn't the truth. She left because she spoke up, and they punished her for it. What she told me that night broke something open inside me, not just because it confirmed everything I felt, but because it meant I wasn't imagining it. I wasn't overreacting. I wasn't alone. She said there'd been other incidents. A black girl in sophomore year, called too aggressive for defending herself in gym class. A Latina student who transferred out after emotional distress. But the real story was Tyler cornered her after school and tried to force himself on her. Her family was undocumented. They took hush money and disappeared. She even filed a report once. Named names, brought screenshots. Went to the head of student life with a stack of printed out DMs, threats, screenshots from hidden group chats. Know what they told her? You need to let this go for the good of the school's reputation. That was their favorite line. For the good of the school. But what about the good of the students? What about the girls left crying in bathroom stalls? What about the ones who never came back? She said when she refused to drop it, they started stacking her evaluations. Suddenly, her classroom was being monitored. They slashed her department budget. And just like that, after 6 years of teaching, she was gone. She told me she kept everything, printed every email, recorded her own meetings, and now she was ready to share it. With me. That's how we got the paper trail. That's how we found the smoking gun. There was a file, internal notes buried deep. Showed that Tyler had been flagged the year before for boundary violations. A girl had reported him for unwanted touching. It never made it to parents. Never reached the district. Know why? Because his daddy handled it privately. Translation. He wrote a check. They erased her name, expunged the record, gave him a clean slate, and let him keep walking those halls like nothing ever happened. But this time, it wasn't going away. Because this time, I kept receipts. The second phone I used, I'd backed everything up to the cloud. Timestamps, file logs, metadata, even a few audio clips that caught more than just the bullies. You could hear teachers in the background, laughing, watching, saying nothing. They tried to bury me. But now I had the shovel. When it went to court, I remember how cold the room felt. I was 17 by then, barely old enough to drive, and now I was sitting across from lawyers paid 6 figures to tear my story apart. But I didn't flinch. They asked me why I fought back. I said, because they left me no choice. They asked why I recorded it. I said, because I knew they wouldn't believe me unless I did. They called me combative. I stayed calm. They said I escalated the situation. I said I ended it. Every word they used to paint me as dangerous only made their case weaker. Because when the footage played, uncut, uninterrupted, undeniable, there wasn't a person in that room who could pretend it didn't happen. Not anymore. And when I finished testifying, I looked at the judge when I said something I never planned to say. They thought I was weak. I just wanted to learn. That courtroom got real quiet, and for once, they listened. The verdict came 3 days later. Tyler, expelled. Record made permanent. Civil charges filed. His family's reputation? In freefall. Cameron withdrew from school. Zach's college rescinded his offer. The board members who looked the other way, pressured to resign. And Bridgestone? They became the face of a national lawsuit, one that stretched far beyond me. Because once the dam broke, other schools got named. Other victims came forward. This wasn't just about one hallway, or one girl, or one viral video. This was a reckoning. And I'll be honest with you, the win didn't feel like a celebration. It felt like grief. Grief for the girl I used to be, the one who sat silent at the back of every class, afraid to take up space. Grief for the girls who didn't have cameras, who never got their day in court. Grief for the trust I lost, the safety I never had. But beneath all that grief was something deeper. Strength. Not the kind they teach in gym class, but the kind that grows in silence, in survival, in saying, no more, even when your voice shakes. And if you're still watching this, if you made it this far, let me say this one thing. They tried to bury me, but they didn't know I was a seed. You'd think after the courtroom, after the headlines, after the verdict, there'd be this big cinematic moment. Cameras flashing, crowds cheering. That clean kind of closure they like to sell you in movies. But that ain't how healing works. Truth is, once the noise died down, Amira disappeared. No press tour, no interviews. She turned down talk shows, even the national ones. They tried everything. Offered book deals, brand sponsorships, even floated a limited series on Netflix. She said no to all of it. She walked away from the spotlight like it was poison, like she'd already seen what it does to people who survive just enough to get exploited. She just wanted her peace, and for a long while that's all anyone knew. No one could find her. She left social media, changed numbers. Even her classmates lost touch. There were rumors. Some said she moved to the West Coast, others claimed she was studying martial arts full-time in Japan. One girl swore she saw her teaching a self-defense workshop in Chicago, but nothing concrete. It was like she vanished. Until the documentary dropped. How she fought back. Not on TV. Not in theaters. It just appeared one day on YouTube. No flashy editing. No celebrity voiceover. Just a grainy black and white video with Amira's name in lowercase letters. And then, her voice. I didn't even realize how much I missed it. She wasn't reading a script. She wasn't performing. She was just speaking. And it hit different. She talked about the cost of survival. Not just the bruises or the courtroom stress, but the weight of always having to prove her own pain. She spoke about being tired, about the nights she couldn't sleep, about not trusting smiles anymore, about what it feels like when people only care about your story after it becomes marketable. But the most powerful part wasn't what she said about herself. It was what she said about them. See, in the final scene, she held up a copy of a book, dog-eared, worn. The Art of Peace, by Morihei Ueshiba, the founder of Aikido. I'd seen that book before. It was always on her nightstand back when she lived with her aunt. She never talked about it, but I remember the pages were full of little notes in pencil. Tiny things like, breathe here, or don't let them pull you out of yourself. Turns out, she sent that book to Zach. Yeah, Zach. The same Zach who used to mock her behind her back. The same Zach who cheered when Tyler grabbed her in that hallway. The one who ran that hidden Instagram account posting humiliating clips like it was sport. He was the last person anyone expected to hear from. But after the documentary dropped, he posted a message online. At first, I thought it was fake. Just some clout chaser trying to ride the wave. But the video was real. No filters, no edits. Just him, sitting on the floor of what looked like a halfway empty apartment. Looked like he'd been crying. He said he watched the documentary 3 times before he could even look himself in the mirror. Said the book wrecked him, not because it was preachy, but because it showed him what restraint really looks like. He said, "She could have ruined me. And instead, she gave me something I didn't deserve. Peace." Now don't get me wrong. Not everyone forgave him. And honestly, I'm not sure I did either. But hearing that, knowing Amira had the strength to send that book after everything, not for attention, not to prove anything, but because she meant it, that's what broke me. That's when I realized this was never just about revenge, it was about transformation. She didn't just fight back. She transcended. She didn't scream louder. She stood still, in the middle of the storm, and let the truth do the swinging. That hallway, that day, when Tyler hit the floor and the world finally saw who she was. That wasn't just a throw, it was a reckoning. A ripple that moved through generations of silence and then cracked it wide open. And the beauty of it? She didn't raise her voice. She raised the standard. So if you're sitting here watching this, waiting for the big ending, some revenge fantasy or happily ever after, let me tell you what really happened. Amira walked away. Not as a victim, not as a viral moment, but as a young black girl who turned her trauma into testimony, who taught the world that strength ain't just fists or footage or fighting back loud. Sometimes it's the quiet, the breath you take before you choose not to become what tried to break you. She didn't just break the cycle, she redefined strength. In a world that punished silence, she answered with truth. And a throw that echoed across generations. And that sound, that thud in the hallway, we still feel it. Because some echoes don't fade, they change the room. Forever. You know, I think about that hallway sometimes. Not the throw itself, not even the look on Tyler's face when he hit the ground, But what happened right after? That stillness, that beat of silence where everybody, students, teachers, cameras, they ain't know whether to scream or run or clap or cry. It was like the whole school had been holding its breath for years, and in that one moment, it finally exhaled. But this wasn't just a fight in a hallway. It was a reckoning of power, of silence, of what happens when the system keeps its eyes shut and expects you to do the same, of what it costs a person to not break, and what it looks like when somebody finally says, enough. Amira didn't just throw a boy. She threw centuries of shame off her shoulders. She threw back every stay quiet, every boys will be boys, every don't make trouble that tried to live inside her. And in that moment, she rewrote the rules. But what stays with me most is how quiet she stayed afterward. You'd expect a victory lap, some big triumphant speech, maybe a viral post, a mic drop. But nah. She walked away. She walked away with her head high and her story intact. Hers. Not the media's, not the school's, not ours. And that's the part nobody teaches you. That real strength ain't always loud. Sometimes it looks like walking away before the world decides what you're worth. I think a lot of us needed to see that. We needed to know that survival can be silent, that justice don't always come with applause. Sometimes it just shows up in the quiet, in the healing, in the choice to keep going. I wonder how many kids watched that footage and felt something shift inside them. Not just the ones who've been bullied, but the ones who stood by, the ones who stayed quiet, the ones who laughed. I wonder how many of them lay in bed that night, staring at their ceiling, asking themselves who they really were. Because Amira didn't just shake up her school, she shook something in us. She reminded us that bravery ain't about being fearless, it's about standing up while you're still scared, still hurt, still shaking. And it's about what you do with that moment, when no one else is watching, and you could choose revenge or silence. But instead you choose something bigger. You choose to be the echo that don't fade. And maybe that's what this was really all about. Not a viral video, not a court case, but a question we all gotta sit with. What would you do when the hallway goes quiet and all eyes turn to you? Would you freeze? Would you fall in line? Or would you find that fire deep in your chest, that voice your mama told you never to bury, and use it? Because sometimes all it takes is one person refusing to fold, to show the rest of us how to stand. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever been in a moment like that? Where somebody thought they were untouchable, and you had to find the courage to look them dead in the eye and not flinch? Drop your story in the comments. Let the quiet voices rise. Because this ain't just Amira's story, it's ours. And next time, we uncover a story even wilder, how one expelled student hacked his school's entire system, and what he found buried deep in the principal's inbox. Changed everything. But for now, let's sit with this one. Let it breathe. Let it remind us. Truth don't need permission, and justice don't whisper. It lands. Hard. Like a thud in a hallway. That don't stop echoing. Ever.